Shawn, welcome to the Leaders Who Care series. It is really great to have you here, man.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it.
And thank you for the real cap.
Mhm.
I thought it might be too much both of us wearing it at the same time, and maybe somewhere
It's
in there
okay.
I'll grab it and wear it. But it's a very cool cap. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But
Sure.
you, if you could briefly introduce yourself with respect to like where you're from originally, where you are now, family, things like that. We'll get into the business in a minute, but tell us a little bit about Shawn and maybe something no one even knows.
Sure. So I grew up in Long Island, New York. I was born in Brooklyn, but I moved to Long Island when I was about second grade. I went to Syracuse University. I would say also when I was a kid, I was painfully shy. Like I didn't want to talk at all for something that you might not know.
No, I didn't know that. And what about family? Are parents still around?
Sure. So, actually, my dad just passed
Hmm.
4 or 5 months ago, but my mom's still around. She's in Long Island. Then I have two older sisters. I have one in Boston, one in LA, and then I have a half brother and half sister. One's in New Jersey, and another one's in Boston. And
No,
my stepmom's in New York.
no, but I don't know if I told you this, but my Danish bonus daughter, who's married to my middle son, did
Yeah.
I tell you that? We don't use
Uh,
step or halves anymore. We say
Oh, okay.
bonus.
Oh, bonus. I didn't know. I never knew this.
But I didn't know either, but it sounds better, doesn't it? I mean, steps are always depicted in movies like every single step seems to be evil.
Yes. Stepmom's always evil.
He's
My
like,
stepmom is not
don't.
evil, but yeah, they're always whatever
So,
is. Yeah, might as well just put evil instead of the word step. But I don't know for movie sake. But we're in the real world now, so I don't know.
well, when you next see them, you can say, you know what? I'm going to consider you my bonus
I
mom,
will.
bonus
I'll
sister.
tell her. Yeah.
She'll be thrilled. Type of thing. So you mentioned you as a kid. I like
Hmm.
to look at the threads here. You didn't just say you were shy. You said you were painfully shy. What
Uh-huh.
did you like doing?
What I like doing, I was a good athlete, so I did a lot of sports, for sure. A lot of soccer, baseball, track, this, that, and the other thing. So that was my main activity.
Hmm.
Ride my bike, hanging out, kind of typical kids type stuff.
No
Uh,
helmet.
No, we didn't have a helmet back then. No, and then
Exactly.
you just go on your bike, go visit your buddies, be out all night, and then just come home and eat dinner. No one's looking for you or worried about you or tracking you on an app. It's just, I'll see you later. Okay, all right,
I
I'm
know.
back. What are we eating for dinner?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember.
that was pretty. That was nice.
Yeah. So were there any sport you were better at, or did you have lemonade stands, entrepreneur stuff, or what?
I was good. I think I was a good soccer player. So yeah, we were like third in the state in Long Island. So I was pretty good at that. Pretty good at baseball. I would say on the entrepreneurial side, more. I had a lot of interesting jobs in the summer, things like that. So I think one of the most interesting jobs I had was working as a door-to-door salesman, selling steaks and seafood door to
Wow.
door,
Wow.
which was in yeah, that was an interesting job. I did that one summer.
Good discount?
Did I get a good discount? Uh, yeah, all right. I might take some shrimp out of the bag every once in a while and just test it out, kind of
Uh,
thing. So
Oh,
five-finger discount sometimes. So
oh, good. Summer jobs are also one of those things that seem to disappear, right?
I guess, yeah. And then I had another summer job. I unloaded trailer trucks. That was a tough job. So there was a lot of different kind of odds and ends that I had done.
Yeah, I find as I go through and talk to a lot of people in this and in the work we do that how influenced we really are, and knowledgeable we really are, and gritty we are by some of the
Hmm.
stuff we did. Not to mention like trailer truck, taking stuff out of trailer truck and all that. I mean, um, and we just learned about working.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
It was great. And we didn't
Yeah.
have helmets riding bikes. We just did it. And you're right.
No bikes. No helmets. We'd have little jumps. We'd do everything. Doesn't
And we were
helmet
happy.
wasn't a thought. I don't think they really had helmets. It wasn't even like an idea.
Yeah, we were happy, right? I mean, it's pretty incredible. So your journey after that, you mentioned Syracuse.
Mhm.
You did finance, also a big broadcasting school as well.
Oh yeah, Newhouse. That's a great school for broadcasting.
Yeah. What were you envisioning at the time, I guess in general, but that then led you to a stint with Deutsche Bank and Sustainable World Capital, and then I gotta ask you about the comedy shop.
Ah, okay. So I don't think I was thinking about any of those things when I was in college. I was just in college and trying to get by, also have a good time, and I wasn't thinking so much like what's my future career.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I should have, but I wasn't thinking about that at all. Um, and then my first, I guess it was my career or whatever, before all that in finance was I started the company. Well, I started in college. I would sell T-shirts and coffee mugs and different things with different logos on it. So I had a little company that I would service all the fraternities and sororities, right? They'd have different events. And then when I graduated, I was like, all right, that's going to be my job. So I created a company. I really had no idea what I was doing. It was called Dynamic Innovations. And the idea there was that not would I only do one school, but I go to different schools and have different reps working for me in different
Wow.
schools, going around and doing all the, you can call them promotional and premium items and t-shirts and hats and things like that.
So you had to develop a whole sales compensation plan and everything.
I guess I don't really think of it as some big plan.
Right.
And I remember I really had no idea what I was doing. And then I rented a space or I got a space close to my house and I put an ad in the paper or something. And then I think I had a suit, but I put it on and then I was interviewing, kids like myself. Uh, I don't think a lot showed up, but a couple that program, I guess, didn't work out that great in terms of having reps in different schools. A couple of them sold some stuff, but it that wasn't the main. It wasn't. I mean, the company did all right. It was just a little tiny startup, right? But
Great
that's
experience.
yeah. It was interesting.
And then I guess what did Deutsche Bank recruit out of college?
No, Deutsche Bank is much later. So
Oh,
so I did that, and then also a big thing for me in college and out of college was being part of the Dale Carnegie course. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Dale
sure.
Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. So that's a class that I took in college. I think especially that helped quite a bit with the kind of the shyness or speaking in front of groups. And
Hmm.
a friend of mine in college, his name was Walter, and we were also friendly with his dad, and his dad was friendly with my mom. And his dad recommended that I take the class and said, this might even be more valuable than what you do in college. And I think from a skill set perspective, he was right that
Yeah.
was more helpful because you get up and you have to speak in front of people. And I did it at Syracuse, and then I became what you call like almost like a graduate assistant,
Hmm.
like a TA, where I would be the assistant for other people in the class. So this is a little bit how I got my start in finance. So I was an assistant in New York City. I was living in New York City, and I was the assistant in one of the classes. And in the classes, you'd have guys, and ladies 40, 50 years old. They have these positions in finance, etc. And I was their assistant where I would have them as my students, which was rather strange. And I'd be calling them up and checking, did you do your assignment? Hey, let's go over this. So I created some interesting relationships. So through that, when I was looking for a job, when I was in the city, I called on all those people. And that's how I first got into finance from one of the people there that I was their assistant. His name was Brian Greenstein, so he helped me get a job. Um,
That's brilliant.
yeah.
I don't usually hear the story that the teacher's aide ended up getting hired by
The
the
teacher.
student.
Well, yeah, exactly. So I do have an interesting story of my first job if you'd like to hear it more.
Sure, yeah, please.
So the Brian helped me. He basically, there was a guy in his office, and the firm did international institutional equity sales, selling stocks to banks overseas. He had a guy in his office that his assistant had left, and he needed someone else to work there. I found out later that his assistant was his girlfriend. So this guy was super successful in my mind, and so he's like, "All right, come in for an interview." I'm like, "All right, fine." So the interview was he was looking for places to live in New York City, and this was like early 90s. So we're going to places like Trump Plaza, Trump Tower, and it had a better name then, and looking at all these fancy places, and we just walked around the city and looked at these apartments, and he's like, "Shawn, you're hired." I'm like, "Okay." It wasn't really much of an interview. He's like, "I like you." He tells me that you're going to make $60,000 a year, which was pretty good money, you know. And I was just like, "Wow, that's awesome." And he goes, "One thing, working with Europe, you got to get up early in the morning to work." I'm like, "No problem, man." So he's like, "All right, we're going to start next week or whatever." So that next week I started, and I don't remember Monday or Tuesday, whatever day of the week it was. So I was like, "All right, you got to be here at 4." Not a problem. So lived on 63rd and First. I had to walk down to like 43rd and Second or Third, where the office was, at 4 o'clock in the morning in New York City. Obviously, it's dark. So you get there and you ring the doorbell of the building, basically, and no one answers the door. Then I got to knock on the window, wake up the doorman, and he gets up. I could see his face right now, all groggy. Opens the door, lets me in. Fine. So I'm starting my first day. Go up to the office, starting my first day of work. So he's the guy that I was working with. He's like, "All right, Shawn, you got to get on the phones within the first 10 minutes." I'm like, "Okay, whatever." So he says, "You got to we're starting calling these places like Luxembourg, Liechtenstein, all these different places. I never even heard of these places." And I'm picking up the phone, I'm calling these places, but I can't really understand even what the people are saying. So I'm basically hanging up the phone. And was there for about 20 minutes, and then the guy says to me, "Shawn, I'm not feeling that good." I said, "Fine." He says, "I'm gonna go home." I said, "Okay, go home." All right. He went home. I never saw the guy again.
No way.
No, he never came back.
Oh my God.
He
That's
never
a
came back.
crazy story.
Yeah, he never came back.
What about his assistant girlfriend?
I don't. She was gone by then. I think they hit. I don't know what happened. I was replacing her.
Well, it sounds like all these international connections, he's like taken off out of the country or something's going on, right?
No, he was in his apartment. I honestly think he was depressed because uh, the people would, I didn't really know the guy. And then I'd be sitting for the first week. Yeah, you're just sitting there. Second week, you're sitting there. And then people start asking me what's going on with him. And I said, I don't know. And then his apartment was right around the corner from the office. So I go check. And, he didn't want to come down. He didn't want to do anything. So,
Oh,
I mean, at that time, I didn't really understand that. But I think he was probably depressed. I'm
well,
my
that's a
clinical prognosis at this time.
interesting segue to one of the things we'll talk about in a couple of
Sure,
minutes on this for sure. But yeah, that's got to be weird for a young guy, and the guy's just gone.
he's gone. He's gone.
Um, good experience talking to people you don't understand, though.
I eventually understood them,
I
and
kind of
I
figured.
was eventually became pretty good at it.
And then, I mean, a little bit fast forward, give us the 1 to 2 minute version of how you managed to be a part-time owner of a comedy club, and was this related to that?
No, this was not related to that, but I'll say in a strange way, this all related because in a sense that was also trying to come out of my kind of shell, right? So
Mhm.
take Dale Carnegie, and this was many years later, do the comedy stuff. So the comedy stuff, I had I was taking a comedy class, so they teach you how to do comedy, right?
Mhm.
And basically at the graduation is you invite all your friends to the comedy club and you put on a show. And when you put on the show, guess what happens? You are hilarious. everyone is laughing. You think you're Jerry Seinfeld. You're like, I'm the greatest ever, right? But it's not true because the audience is basically this. People are just in shock to seeing you there. And I'm gonna verse on another story. And then I had done that, my bits. And then the next week I was on a business trip in Dallas, Texas. And I was like, I saw a sign that said open mic. I'm like, I'm going. I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna kill him. So I went to the open mic. I did the same exact stuff, and no one laughed, and it was very painful.
No kidding.
No one was laughing. So I realized, that was kind of a setup. But I think then I kind of got into that, and the comedy was also a bit of addiction because you get a big rush just making the people laugh. I would also say it's very, very painful in the beginning when no one's laughing. And I don't think any comedian is good in the beginning. I don't think it's like I'm born a comedian. No, it's very, very painful. Eventually, when you get over the pain and you don't care if the people laugh, then you get better. But there's a long period of time where there's a lot of pain.
Yeah, there's a lot of mental health issues in the comedian world,
Sure.
for sure. And I was
Sure.
fortunate enough to meet, Zach Williams, which is
I know
Robin's.
Zach.
Oh, yeah, okay. And and it's really sad, obviously, what happened to his dad. He's like a genius in what he
Yeah.
did. Plus, he had the ability to do drama too. He wasn't just a comedian.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's a lot of pressure there to be funny all the time. People stereotype that
Sure.
you're supposed to be
Sure.
funny all the time. But laughter's great for mental health too, and
Oh, no doubt.
you know.
And I would say that doing the comedy, that's a little bit like Dale Carnegie. It's super helpful with sales, incredibly helpful, and incredibly helpful just doing public speaking, etc. It's a great practice.
Well, it's if it's really good, it's authentic,
Sure.
and it does not only mentally, physiologically does stuff to our body and whatnot. We'll come back to that like in a minute. Mind you, one quick thing, I did meet oh, I forgot his last name, not Bud Grossman. He was the founder of Improv. I met him on a cruise once, and
Yeah.
then I started doing events at the Improv in Miami all the time, and
Nice.
it was a blast bringing people in for different things, and
Yeah.
people love to laugh,
Sure.
and
Of course.
they feel good. So I wanted to segue into something here for a minute. We
Sure.
found that our firm, Fifth Element, on the basic premise that leaders and their organizations can all do way better when they're doing good. And from some of the stuff you're talking about now and some of the stuff we've even talked about, clearly you were an early leader in understanding the interconnection of finance, economic impact in tandem, if you will, with social and or environmental impact.
You make that sound very official. It wasn't very official in my mind.
Well, it doesn't have to be official. You didn't know what you were doing in college. You didn't know what you were doing with the biz jobs, but you still did good, apparently.
Right.
But you co-founded and became managing partner of Big Path Capital, which is
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
official. And
Right.
and to quote it, I think you're recognized as Impact Investing's investment bank, basically.
Sure. Yeah. Yes.
You engaged with public, private investors, all the way to the Department of Commerce, family offices,
Yeah.
influential players, all over the place, hosting major events, which in some ways ties back to a lot of different things you did when you were a kid. There's value in a lot of that things. So what was the passion, and despite your shyness, the confidence that guided you to do this? And if I can ask the second question, what did you learn and experience about everything you did there with respect to impact?
Okay. Let's rewind because there's a couple of
First
questions
question,
there.
what was the passion? Where did the passion come and the confidence come to even do that?
So I don't know about the passion, the confidence, but I can tell you where the idea came. So,
Okay.
I was working as an international institutional equity guy, basically selling stocks for banks overseas. I was doing that for a while. And then I ran into a bioplastic company. I don't, bioplastics are substitute for petroleum-based plastics. And they compost. I used to have this bioplastic fork I used to bring around, and I would say, this compost in your backyard. I really didn't know what compost was, but I took the company over to Europe because most of my clients were there, and I was in Switzerland and in Zurich, and I go see Jurgen and Franz, and I'd be like, "Hey, check this out. This company makes this bioplastic fork, and it composts in your backyard." And they didn't look at me funny. They said to me, "Shawn, give me that. I'm gonna compost it." And we raised about $15 million for the company, and I was just like, "Ah, this is pretty interesting. You could make money and you can do good." So I remember being on that trip and then going back on the plane.
Hmm.
And when we were on the plane, thinking to my head, in my head, okay, I'm going to start a company that does that, makes money and does good. And I eventually started the company before Big Path called Sustainable World Capital,
Hmm.
which was a one-man show, really. And the idea was to bring sustainable companies over to European investors. So they raise money in that for that. Because I was like, why wouldn't you make money? I mean, it's nice to make rich guys richer. That's terrific. But why not make money and do something good? And it also was at that time kind of, I guess, unique, or there was this stigma, or like you can't make money and do good, which I always was like,
Right.
why the what? Well, what is? I don't understand that. Why couldn't you? Man,
Me
why
neither.
do you have to destroy stuff to make money? I don't understand. So
Yeah.
that was the impetus to uh, get into the space. And at that time, the space wasn't really the space. There was no impact investing.
Right.
There was some sustainability. There was some maybe not even a little bit of clean tech, but that was early on.
And can you give us a sense of what you learned and experienced, or experiences where you actually saw, I guess that was one in Europe, you actually saw more and more companies, organizations doing better financially because of the impact they were making, not separate, like you said, it used to be.
I think where I saw that the most and where I first got heard about impact investing was in the Netherlands. There's a guy, Robert Rubenstein. I don't know if you ever run into Robert. He has a company called TBLI, Triple Bottom Line Investment. He was, early pioneer. Robert actually is born in Brooklyn, but he lives in the Netherlands. So he had a conference on that, and I was just like, oh, wow, this is really interesting. And then that was also around the time when they had this thing called the Clean Tech Group, which was also doing a similar type of thing, just starting out. I mean, the conferences got really big, but at that time they were 50 people.
Hmm.
So, but I just always thought in my mind, I think I'm like, this is gonna take off, man. Like, why wouldn't you make money and do good? This doesn't make any sense to me. I'm just like,
Yeah.
this is I'm like, that's a no-brainer. Like, what? So I think it took longer to catch on, but always in my mind, I was like, no, this is gonna be a big thing because it's pretty logical.
Yeah, it made no sense to me either, where you had to be poor to be able to make a difference, and you had to be greedy to just be rich and not give a
Sure,
whatever about anything.
sure.
Um, and it made no sense to me also. Moving a little bit ahead, because I know we can't cover your whole life, but um, share with us to the extent that you're comfortable
Yeah.
how you were impacted mentally, physically during this whole time, and how you became aware of what was happening, how it evolved for you.
Are you talking about on the mental health side?
Yeah.
Sure, sure. So let's do a little rewind. So yeah, then ended up 16 years, the co-founder of Big Path Capital. What did we do there? Raise money for impact and sustainable companies, raise money for impact and sustainable private equity funds. We put on different investor convenings, put on about 60 over the years, mostly
Hmm.
US, some Europe. Had an online investor portal, about 1,000 LPs and 10 GPs at any one time, and build up the company. So that's also the resume side. So in terms of the mental health, I would have depression from time to time, in my 20s, in my 30s, in my 40s. It would kind of come, it would go. I would take antidepressants, then I feel better, and I'm like, I'm not taking these things anymore. And I was a little bit on that cycle. And then this specific time, what happened was it was a summer of 22, and I was depressed. I was having trouble eating. I was having trouble sleeping. I know I'm depressed because I just stopped eating. And I lost 40 pounds, but I wasn't on a diet, right? It's nice to lose 40 pounds.
Hmm.
So, and then the question is, well, why? So I think at that specific time, and it was much worse than any other time, was a little bit of a combination platter. One, I wasn't on any of the antidepressants. Two, I happen to have COVID. I don't know how much that affected it, but I'm sure some. Three, it was like, all right, I'm getting older. Who am I? When am I? And then, my kids are getting older, things are changing. Yeah, there was definitely some stress at work internally, but nothing, I would say, different than most other people. It's not like, oh, this is a strange circumstance.
Right.
But I think, and then I think also really not eating well or not much, and then sleeping. I'm also a guy that loves to take a nap a lot, and my brain could not stop. I could not relax. So eventually, what happened is the whole system basically it broke down. So uh, I like to say it was December 19th. It was a Wednesday at 22. I was on a Zoom call, and the thing I can't say it just happened right then, but I basically like had a full mental breakdown where I was on a call. I couldn't really speak, and I was suicidal. Tell my wife I don't want to be here anymore. Please freaking kill me. So most wives don't want to hear that. Some might, not my wife, but that was the kind of progression uh, that took me to that specific spot.
Were there, there's, this as well as anybody, and I want to get into the Real Mental
Sure.
Health Foundation too, but
Yeah.
there's a real stigma, in a similar way to there was for breast cancer when it started.
Sure.
You shouldn't talk about it.
Yeah.
Um, how do you talk about the importance of recognizing and minimizing that stigma even now? Because it was really hard before.
How do I recognize it? You when this there's more to the story and what happened, but when I was kind of coming out the other side, I was like, all right, you got a choice here, buddy. You can lean into this or just kind of just try to shove it under the rug. And I was like, no, screw that. I'm gonna lean into this thing. And I think
Good.
we can help other things. So I'm not like afraid of the stigma. I just don't. It was almost like the same kind of stigma with impact investing. You can't make money, you can't do good.
Right.
You break your arm. In the old days, you come home, they uh, give your cast, you'd sign it, and people would sign it, and they say congratulations or whatever. But now, if you break your brain, basically, same type of thing. There's some issue. You got to go hide in the corner, and you can't talk to anybody. Uh, it's the same thing about impact investing. I don't get it. So it's not like, oh, I have to break the stigma. It's more like, well, that doesn't make any sense to me either. It's not
No,
a
it doesn't.
whatever.
In fact, like we've talked, it's terrible if a person has to call in and say they got the flu rather than they're depressed because that'll be on their record or something,
Sure,
type of
sure,
thing. But I
sure.
find it fascinating that the kid who, was painfully shy is
Uh-huh,
now breaking stigmas of impact investing, breaking
uh-huh,
stigmas of mental health, and
uh-huh,
now you've got the Real Mental Health Foundation.
uh-huh.
So either you got to thank Dale Carnegie quite a bit, which by the way is one of my favorite books
Yeah,
ever.
yeah.
Um, but no, but not just that, you've experienced stuff along the way
Mhm,
that obviously made a difference for you, and you
mhm.
founded the Real Mental Health Foundation. You can share what the mission is of it?
Sure. So, I mean, there's different parts to the real. There's also a for-profit, nonprofit, but specifically in the beginning, the idea was, it still is, right? Mental health is complicated. There's a lot of different pieces to it, but what were the pieces that were especially helpful for me, right? That might be helpful for other people was really the power of conversation and community to help people get better, including myself. So to kind of give a little rocket fuel to that thought process. And
Hmm.
I'm happy to get into what it's all about, but that was the impetus. And the impetus was, I went through some stuff. It was sucked, right? And learned some things. And those things you can help other people, not, they don't have to go through that. And I'd also say, I've spoken now on the phone or in person, over 1,000 conversations, men, women, etc. It doesn't matter. And I say mental health is never 1 degree away from anybody. It's always half a degree or 0 degree away from everybody. When I'm talking on the phone or whatever, everyone knows what I'm talking about. And I couldn't tell you how many times, Mark, I'd be talking to someone, I tell them kind of my story, and they'd be like, Shawn, I never told anyone this, and then they tell me, right? And I'm like, yeah, I know. And I also say, I was at a 10, that's a bad place, but I think everybody in their life at some point is at a 2 or 4 or 6 or 8, whatever. That's normal. So you don't want to get to that extreme spot, but it's pretty normal to have these experiences, for sure.
Yeah, and I think, for what you're doing, and obviously what others are doing too, but what you specifically are doing gives people permission and the confidence to be able to say, hey, I
Sure.
need help, or hey, where can I go? How did you know who to speak to, where to go? Because that's also something we're all working on, is people have access, people have knowledge of where to go, who to get help from, what to do, and even parents, like what to do. What would you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, we had no idea what to do. So,
Hey,
uh,
that's a
uh,
thread too, if you remember. You
yeah,
didn't know in college you were thinking of that when you
no,
didn't
I
know what
didn't.
you were doing with the businesses, but you built them.
No, that's a common thread. I'd figure it out. So, when I was having the situation, and I talked to my wife and then the suicide stuff, and then like, okay, what do we do? We don't know. So we ended up going to the emergency ward, uh, because where else do we don't, I don't know. There's no,
Right,
in Atlanta. And we went there, and then when we were there, they rolled out someone on a Zoom machine and basically said, "Hey, do you want to go to the psych ward?" That was the next step. I was like, I don't know. I don't know what that means, but I want to go somewhere. So I ended up at the psych ward. Um, but that's very complicated to know what to do or where to go. That, I mean, that's also one of the things that we're trying to work with, in regards to the foundation, to have people, peers that might gone through stuff for themselves, family member or friend, whatever, share information, because it's really opaque, these different treatment centers. You can't really understand what's going on.
right.
There's a lot of privacy stuff that you can't get a good feel. It's not like you're walking around the premises and like like you're buying a house and walking around the building. It's not like that.
Yeah, and I think it's so great what you're doing, and obviously we're involved in mental health initiatives too, and in the sense that especially parents, you
Sure.
don't want to feel helpless in not being able to help your kid, worse than yourself even, just help your
Yeah.
kids. And so to have some awareness, some open conversations,
Hmm.
whatnot. In fact, there's a statistic, I don't know what it is, about how many times people actually do think of suicide, even quote unquote regular people think of suicide.
It's not
Uh,
unusual at all. It's
yeah,
that's kind of typical. Yeah, about suicidal ideations. It's not I think everyone has those at one time or another, or strange thoughts. That's actually normal. So everything
exactly.
that I'm talking, I don't think this, I mean, maybe my story was a little bit extreme, but the story is not strange. Might not hear about it so much, but it's not an unusual thought process for folks.
Well, the great thing about it right now is we're hearing about it, and the great thing about others are
Sure.
telling their stories too, which is really important,
Sure.
just like anything else. They say in LA that you got to leave people wanting more so you can do a sequel. I have a feeling we're going to do multiple
Sure.
sequels
Whatever you
and
want. Yeah.
stuff. But I have one question that I want to complete on this part with you, and
Sure.
a client told me in 2021, the client told me, he said the year 2020, the infamous 2020 pandemic year,
Uh,
was the year that flew by slowly, he said. And it really did hit me, because sometimes 2020 feels like yesterday, and sometimes for people it feels like years ago at the same time. With all that said, we're in 2024 now,
uh-huh.
almost at the end of it even. What are you most grateful for, and what are you most hopeful for too?
Well, it sounds corny, but I was going to say I'm most grateful for my family, because I was just thinking about COVID, and I actually had a good time during COVID. My kids were home, and we did a lot of activities. Obviously, it wasn't perfect, but we had it. had a good time. And we did a lot of sometimes we're like, I was talking to my son the other day and my daughter, like, oh yeah, COVID was fun because we try to do something fun every day uh together, right?
Yeah,
So from that standpoint,
that's
thankful for
awesome.
that. I think I'm thankful for people that kind of from all strange places that I couldn't even imagine came out to support me. I didn't really get into the treatment centers, but even I was at these treatment centers. One of the treatment centers, there were people from prison, there were homeless people, folks like that, and I was terrified of them, but they became super helpful to me. So, and then I'd really talk about my friend Brent Hurd, who was my mental health sponsor and helped with the reel. So other people showing up from places that you don't really even think about.
No, that's
So what was the other side of the question?
what are you most hopeful for?
What am I hopeful for? I think breaking this down, making people more comfortable with the whole mental health thing. To me, it's similar to impact investing with the stigma. I'm just like, it's kind of stupid, right? It's almost like you can go back to the 80s and 90s, you know, people were gay or whatever, it's this big deal, and then you
Right.
know now it's not a big deal, right? Whatever, you do what you want. So it's the same kind of thing, like wha- wha- nah. So I think it's also making people feel better that that just knowing, hey man, we're all got the same kind of stuff. It's not like a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And you can whatever, you don't have to get all woo woo and have deep conversations, but just be like, yeah, I get you, man. I understand, right? Because I couldn't tell you how, that's what I think the power of foundation is, just no new science, just everyone just knowing, hey, I'm gone through some stuff, you've gone through some stuff, and that's okay. Don't be
Yeah.
like afraid to say, dude, I'm having a tough time. Because
Well,
then
I'm
when you
glad. I'm
yeah,
grateful and hopeful because you are a leader who cares about giving people the opportunity to be who they are.
sure,
And I'm grateful you shared the story about the people in treatment centers.
yeah,
As I say this all the time, there's not to be cute, there's leaders who care everywhere.
yeah, it
And
doesn't matter.
you don't they're not necessarily, categorized as this or that, but they were leaders who cared about you right there.
Sure, 100%.
So way to be a leader who cares, and thanks for being on this. It's really appreciated. You're appreciated, and thanks for joining.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.